The station world of Prime floated in the empty space between stars. It was old, older than most species could remember. Its metal halls had seen 1,000 civilizations rise and fall. Its council chambers had heard the prayers of the weak and the demands of the strong. For 10,000 years, the Galactic Conquered had ruled from this place. They believed they would rule for 10,000 more. Ambassador stood at the window of the human embassy and looked out at the stars. She was 53 years old. Her hair was gray at the edges. Her eyes were tired but sharp. She had served humanity for 30 years, first as a soldier, then as a diplomat. She had learned that words could be weapons too. Behind her, the embassy staff prepared for another day of meetings. Young men and women in clean uniforms moved with quiet purpose. They sorted documents. They checked messages. They did the small work that kept the wheels of diplomacy turning. Humanity had been part of the Galactic Conquered for 60 years. In galactic terms, this was nothing. A blink. A single breath. The elder species had walked among the stars for hundreds of thousands of years. They had built empires when humans were still living in caves. They looked at humanity the way a grown man might look at a child playing with dangerous toys. Knew this. She had felt their eyes on her in every meeting. She had heard the condescension in their translated words. Though with their clicking mandibles and cold, compound eyes spoke to humans slowly, as if explaining things to the very young. The collective, a hive mind of pale telepaths, whispered in the back of her skull with barely hidden amusement. The dominion of proud reptilian warriors did not bother to hide their contempt at all. But also knew something the elder species did not understand. Humanity was not a child. Humanity was something else entirely. She remembered the history lessons of her youth. Humanity had crawled out of the mud of a small blue world. They had survived ice ages that lasted thousands of years. They had survived plagues that killed half their number. They had survived predators with claws and teeth. And when they ran out of predators, they survived each other. The elder species saw this history and thought humans were primitive, violent, unstable. They saw the wars and the conflicts and the endless fighting. They did not see what saw. They did not understand that humanity was still here because of those wars, not despite them. Every battle had made them stronger. Every loss had taught them something new. Every scar was a lesson written in blood. The door to her office opened. Her aide, a young man named Thomas, stepped inside. His face was pale. "Ambassador," he said, "we have received a message from the High Arbiter." Turned from the window. "What does want?" Thomas swallowed. "The Council has called an emergency closed session. All 12 elder species will attend. The human delegation is summoned." Summoned raised an eyebrow. "Not invited." "No, ma'am, summoned." Felt something cold settle in her stomach. In 60 years, humanity had never been summoned to anything. They had been invited. They had been requested. They had been politely asked, but never summoned. She walked to her desk and picked up her tablet. The message was short. It gave no explanation. It simply demanded that the human delegation appear before the full council in 6 hours. The topic of discussion was listed only as the human question. Read those words 3 times, the human question, as if humanity was a problem to be solved, a puzzle to be figured out, a mistake to be corrected. She thought about the past 60 years. Humanity had followed every rule. They had respected every boundary. They had asked permission before colonizing new worlds. They had shared their technology freely. They had done everything the conquered asked of them. And still, they were seen as a threat. Understood why. She had seen the reports from alien intelligence agencies. She knew what the elder species whispered about in their private meetings. Humans adapted too quickly. They learned too fast. They formed bonds with other species too easily. They remembered insults for too long. That had taken 1,000,000 years to spread across their first 100 worlds. Humanity had done it in 2 centuries. The collective had needed 10,000 years to develop faster-than-light travel. Humanity had done it in 50. They had spent countless generations perfecting their warrior culture. Human children learned to fight before they learned to read. These things frightened the elder species. They did not understand how a species so young could move so fast. They did not understand the fire that burned inside every human heart, the hunger, the refusal to accept limits, the absolute certainty that tomorrow could be better than today. Set down her tablet and looked at Thomas. "Gather the delegation," she said. "Full formal dress, everyone." "Ma'am, do you know what this is about?" Walked past him toward the door. "I have a guess." "Should we be worried?" She stopped. For a long moment she did not answer. Then she turned and looked at her young aide. He was afraid. She could see it in his eyes. He had grown up in peacetime. He had never known war. He had never seen what humanity could do when pushed into a corner. "Thomas," she said quietly, "do you know why the conquered has never attacked humanity directly? Why they use laws and rules and diplomatic pressure instead of warships?" "Because we're members of the conquered." Shook her head. "Because 60 years ago, when our first ship entered their space, they scanned us. They analyzed our history. They studied our wars." She paused. "And something in those records scared them so badly that they decided it was safer to keep us close than to make us angry." Thomas stared at her. "What did they find?" Smiled. It was not a warm smile. "They found out that humanity has never lost a war that mattered. They found out that when we fight, we don't stop until the enemy is gone, not defeated, gone." She turned back toward the door. "They found out what we really are." "And what are we?" Opened the door and stepped into the corridor. Her voice was soft, almost gentle. "We are the species that hunted its own gods to extinction. We killed every predator that threatened us. We tamed fire and split the atom and walked on our moon. And when we ran out of challenges on our world, we reached for the stars." She looked back at him one final time. "The elder species think they are the rulers of this galaxy. They are wrong. They are just the ones who got here first." She walked away, leaving Thomas alone with a truth that humanity had always known but never spoken aloud. The galaxy was not as safe as it believed, and humanity was about to remind them why. The grand chamber of the conquered was built to intimidate. Its ceiling rose so high that clouds could form beneath it. Its walls were carved from the bones of dead worlds, polished black stone veined with gold. 12 thrones sat in a half-circle at the far end, each one designed for a different species. Each one occupied by a being who had ruled the stars before humanity learned to make fire. Ambassador walked into the chamber with her delegation behind her. 20 humans in formal black. Their footsteps echoed in the vast space. Every eye turned to watch them. Felt the weight of those stares. The clicked their mandibles in what might have been amusement. The bared their teeth in obvious contempt. The collective sat motionless, their pale faces empty, but could feel them pressing against the edges of her mind. Curious, hungry, waiting. The human delegation stopped at the center of the chamber. A single beam of light fell upon them from above. Beyond that light, the elder species waited in shadow. High Arbiter of the rose from his throne. He was ancient even by the standards of his long-lived race. His exoskeleton was and worn. His compound eyes reflected the light in 1,000 fractured images. "Humanity," he said. His voice was translated by the chamber systems, but the coldness came through clearly. "You have been summoned to hear the judgment of the conquered." Kept her face calm. "Judgment, we were not aware we were on trial." "You are not on trial," replied. "Trials are for those who might be innocent. This is simply a decision." Murmurs rippled through the chamber, heard laughter from the section, low and cruel. Raised one thin limb for silence. "The Council has studied humanity for 60 of your years. We have observed your expansion, your breeding rates, your military development, your cultural patterns." He paused. "We have reached a conclusion." "And what conclusion is that?" Humanity is a destabilizing presence in this galaxy. The words hung in the air, felt her delegation shift behind her. She did not move. You expand too quickly, continued. You adapt too rapidly. Your population grows without control. Your technology advances without wisdom. You form attachments to other species that cloud judgment and create chaos. He tilted his head, studying her with those fractured eyes. You are, in short, a threat to the stability that has kept this galaxy at peace for 10,000 years. Forced her voice to remain steady. We have followed every law. We have respected every treaty. We have done nothing to threaten anyone. Not yet, said a voice from the shadows. It was El, the ambassador. He leaned forward on his throne, his scaled face twisted in a sneer. But you will. It is in your nature. We have seen your history, human, your endless wars, your weapons of mass destruction, your willingness to burn your own world rather than surrender. He laughed. You are animals pretending to be civilized, and animals must be caged. Met his gaze without flinching. Is that the official position of the conquered? It is, answered. The council has voted. The decision was unanimous. What decision? Spread his limbs in a gesture that might have meant regret. We invoke the containment doctrine. The chamber fell silent. Even the stopped laughing. The containment doctrine was old, ancient. It had been used only 3 times in the history of the conquered. Each time it had ended a species. All human colonies beyond your home system will be redistributed to elder species, announced. Your fleet will be reduced to defensive levels only. Your technology will be frozen at its current state. You will not be permitted to advance further. He paused. Earth will be placed under permanent observation. You will remain there contained until the conquered decides otherwise. Heard gasps from her delegation. She heard someone whisper her name. She heard the fear in their voices, but she did not turn around. She kept her eyes on. For how long? She asked. Indefinitely. You are asking us to surrender everything we have built. We are not asking, replied. We are telling. You have no choice in this matter. You are a young species with no allies and no fleet capable of challenging the combined might of the conquered. You will accept this decision or you will be removed. Removed. Did not answer. He did not need to. Stood in the silence that followed. She felt the eyes of the galaxy upon her. She knew what they expected. They expected her to beg, to plead, to bargain for mercy. They had seen young species break before. They had watched civilizations crumble under the weight of this moment. They expected tears and desperate promises. May I speak? Asked. You may not, said. The decision is final. There is nothing to discuss. I see. Stood very still. The delegation behind her held their breath. The elder species waited for the breakdown they were certain would come. Instead smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a wolf that has finally spotted its prey. The collective reached into her mind, searching for her emotions. What they found made them recoil. There was no fear, no despair, no anger. There was only a cold, patient certainty. The certainty of a predator that knows exactly what it is. Human, said slowly, do you understand what has happened here? Yes, replied, I understand perfectly. Then why do you smile? Looked at the 12 thrones. She looked at the beings who had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. She looked at the species that had just sentenced humanity to a slow death. And she felt something she had not felt in a very long time. She felt free. I smile, she said quietly, because you have just made the worst mistake in the history of your species. Leaned forward. Is that a threat, human? No, said. A threat is something you say to scare someone. What I am telling you is a simple fact. She paused. You think you know humanity. You have studied our wars, our history, our nature, but you looked at those things and saw weakness, division, chaos. She shook her head slowly. You saw what we do to ourselves. You never stopped to ask what we might do to you. The chamber was silent. The elder species stared at the small human woman standing in the light. For the first time in 10,000 years, they felt something they had almost forgotten. Doubt straightened her spine. She smoothed her uniform. She looked at each throne in turn, memorizing every face, every shape, every detail. Then she turned to her delegation. "We're leaving," she said. And she began to walk toward the door. The silence in the grand chamber was absolute. Not a whisper, not a breath, not a single sound disturbed the vast empty space as Ambassador walked toward the door. Her footsteps echoed like thunder. Behind her, the human delegation followed in perfect formation, 20 people moving as one. Their faces were calm. Their backs were straight. They did not look left or right. They did not look at the thrones of the elder species. They looked only forward at the great doors that led out of the chamber. High Arbiter rose from his throne. "Human, you have not been dismissed." Did not stop, she did not turn, she kept walking. "This is unprecedented," another voice called out. It was Ambassador of the collective. "No species has ever walked out of a council session. You cannot simply leave." His voice carried clearly through the chamber. "The human delegation acknowledges the council's decision. We withdraw our petition for membership. We withdraw from the conquered entirely." She paused but did not slow her pace. "Effective immediately." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. The elder species exchanged glances. Some were confused, others were amused, a few were beginning to look worried. Elivda laughed loudly. His voice echoed off the ancient walls. "Where will you go, little apes? Back to your tiny world, back to your single star." He stood from his throne, spreading his massive arms. "You have no allies, you have no fleet. You have nothing but your pride, and pride cannot stop plasma fire." Stopped. The entire chamber held its breath. The human delegation stopped with her, perfectly synchronized. For a long moment, no one moved. Then turned. She turned slowly, deliberately, giving every species in the chamber time to see her face. Her expression was calm, almost peaceful, but her eyes were something else entirely. Her eyes were cold and old and patient, like stones that had waited 1,000,000,000 years for this moment. "You misunderstand," she said. Her voice was soft, but it carried to every corner of the vast space. "We did not come to you because we needed you." His mandibles clicked nervously. "Then why did you come?" "Because we hoped you would be worth knowing. Let the words settle. You are not." The ambassador snarled. "You dare insult the conquered. You dare insult species that were building empires when your ancestors were scratching in the dirt." "I dare nothing," replied. "I simply state facts. You have ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. You have had all that time to grow wise, to grow kind, to become something greater than you were." She shook her head slowly. "Instead, you became bullies. You crush young species because you fear them. You make laws to protect your power, not to serve justice. You call yourselves the guardians of peace, but you are nothing more than frightened old men clinging to a throne you no longer deserve." The chamber erupted. A dozen alien languages overlapped in outrage. Threats were shouted. Fists were raised. The translator system struggled to keep up with the chaos. Stood in the center of it all, unmoved. When the noise finally died down, she spoke again. "You have studied humanity for 60 years. You have watched our broadcasts. You have analyzed our history. You have observed our wars." She took one step forward, and the nearest species actually flinched back. "But you learned nothing." "We learned that you are violent and unstable," said. "No, you learned that we fight each other, and you thought that meant we were weak." His voice grew quieter but somehow more dangerous. "You never asked the right question." "What question?" "You never asked why we are still here." The chamber fell silent again. His words seemed to echo longer than they should. "Every species in this chamber has faced extinction at some point in their history," continued. "A plague, a predator, a natural disaster. Each of you survived because you adapted. You evolved, you became stronger." She paused. "Humanity is no different. We have faced extinction more times than we can count. Ice ages, diseases, asteroids, supervolcanoes, and yes, each other. She began walking again toward the door, but slowly now. Every step was measured. Every word was precise. We survived all of it, not by running, not by hiding, not by making deals with forces stronger than ourselves. She stopped at the threshold of the great doors. We survived because we refused to die, because whenever something tried to kill us, we killed it first. We hunted our predators to extinction. We conquered diseases that should have ended us. We burned our own world and rebuilt it from the ashes. She turned one last time to face the 12 thrones. You think you are the apex predators of this galaxy. You think your age and your technology make you invincible. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper, but somehow everyone heard it clearly. You are wrong. You are not predators. You are prey that has forgotten what fear feels like. His voice was uncertain now. Is that a declaration of war? No, said. War is what happens when two sides fight. What you have started is something else entirely. She placed her hand on the door. 60 years ago, you could have welcomed us. You could have made us your partners, your friends, your family. We wanted that. We reached out with open hands. She pushed the door open. Beyond it, the corridor stretched away into darkness. Now our hands will close, and when humanity makes a fist, ambassador, the galaxy trembles. She stepped through the doorway. Her delegation followed. El roared after her. You cannot threaten us. You are nothing. Your species is nothing. His voice drifted back one final time, already fading into the distance. You will see. The great doors swung shut with a boom that shook the ancient chamber. The sound echoed for a long time, fading slowly into silence. For a moment, no one moved. The 12 elder species sat on their thrones, staring at the closed doors, trying to understand what had just happened. Then the collective spoke, all of them, at once. Their telepathic voice reached every mind in the chamber, carrying a single unified emotion that they had not felt in recorded history. Fear. We have made a mistake, they whispered into the minds of the council. We have made a terrible mistake. Tried to restore order. He tried to calm the growing panic. He tried to remind the council that humanity was weak, that humanity had no fleet, that humanity had no allies. But deep in his ancient heart, he knew the truth. The galaxy would never be the same. The humans had not begged, they had not bargained, they had not broken. They had simply walked away. And somehow, that was more terrifying than anything else they could have done. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy waited for humanity to collapse. The elder species were certain it would happen. They had seen it before. Young civilizations always broke eventually. They would rage for a time, make bold declarations, send angry messages. Then reality would set in. They would realize they were alone. They would understand that pride could not feed their children or protect their worlds, and they would come crawling back, broken and humble, begging for whatever scraps the conquered chose to give them. The conquered waited for the begging to begin. It never came. Instead, something far more disturbing happened. Humanity went silent. One by one, the human communication stations stopped transmitting. Their broadcasts ended. Their diplomatic channels closed. Their merchant ships returned home. Within 10 days, there was not a single human voice on any frequency in the galaxy. At first, the elder species thought it was a technical failure. Then they thought it was a protest. Then they began to worry. They are planning something, the collective reported to the council. Their telepaths had tried to reach human minds across the void. They had found nothing but walls. Cold, hard walls that turned aside every probe. We cannot read them. We cannot hear them. They have closed themselves off completely. Let them sulk, El said dismissively. They are throwing a tantrum, it means nothing. But not everyone agreed. In the deep archives of an old historian named Al had begun to study human records in earnest. He had spent 300 years cataloging the rise and fall of civilizations. He had seen patterns that others missed, and what he found in humanity's history made his blood run cold. "They have a saying," he told the council in a private message, "speak softly and carry a big stick. We have heard them speak softly for 60 years. We assumed it meant they had no stick." He paused. "I believe we were wrong." He showed them records from human history, times when humanity had gone quiet before great actions, the months before major wars, the years before revolutionary changes, the silence before their atomic age began. "Humans only stop talking when they have nothing left to say," Al explained. "When words have failed, they turn to action, and their actions—" He brought up images of mushroom clouds, of burning cities, of technologies that had remade their world. "Their actions are always decisive." The council dismissed his concerns. Al was old, he was overcautious, humanity was weak. 3 weeks after the walk, a scout fleet was sent to inspect a human colony near the border. 6 warships, carrying the finest warriors of the Dominion. They were ordered to intimidate, to remind the humans of their place. The fleet was never heard from again. When a second fleet was sent to investigate, they found the first one drifting in empty space. All 6 ships were intact. All weapons were functional, but every system had been shut down. Every crew member was unconscious, lying peacefully at their posts as if they had simply fallen asleep. Attached to the flagship was a single piece of paper, real paper, handwritten in perfect script. "First warning, there won't be a third." The second fleet commander transmitted this message to the council immediately. His voice shook as he read the words. "How is this possible?" El demanded. "Our sensors detected nothing. No ships, no weapons, no energy signatures. How did they do this?" No one had an answer. Panic began to spread through the conquered. Intelligence agencies scrambled to gather any information they could about humanity's activities. What they found only made things worse. Human colony worlds were not evacuating. They were fortifying. Massive construction projects had begun on every world. Factories that had once built consumer goods were now building something else. Something hidden. Something secret. Human ships were being modified. Their designs were changing. Weapons systems that had been dormant for decades were being activated. Power cores were being upgraded. Engines were being enhanced. And strangest of all, humans were gathering, not in fear but in purpose. Old enemies were shaking hands. Ancient feuds were being set aside. Across every human world, people were coming together with a unity that everything the conquered knew about human nature. "They are supposed to be divided," an analyst reported. "Their history is full of internal conflict. They should be fighting each other, not working together." "They have an external enemy now," Al replied quietly. "Us, and there is nothing in the galaxy that unifies humans faster than a common threat." The council met in emergency session. There was talk of preemptive strikes. There was talk of blockades. There was talk of sending a massive fleet to Earth to force humanity's surrender before they could prepare. But no one wanted to be the first to move. Because something else was beginning to surface. Something that had been buried in classified files for 60 years. The First Contact reports. When humanity's first ship had entered conquered space, it had been scanned thoroughly. Its weapons had been analyzed. Its capabilities had been assessed. The results had been sealed at the highest level and never spoken of again. Now, with fear loosening tongues, those reports began to circulate. The human ship had been a science vessel, a peaceful explorer sent to make friends with the galaxy. It had carried only minimal weapons. It had posed no threat to anyone. But the scans had revealed something else. The ship's hull was designed to be converted into armor plating in hours. Its engine could be modified to power weapons that didn't exist yet. Its crew quarters could be transformed into barracks. Every single system had a secondary military function. The humans had built a warship and called it a science vessel. They had hidden weapons in peace. They had prepared for war while offering friendship. And if their weakest ship was designed this way, what about the rest of their fleet? The council argued for days. Fear made them angry. Anger made them stupid. Some demanded immediate war. Others wanted to try diplomacy. A few suggested simply pretending nothing had happened and hopping humanity would calm down. Then a new message arrived from Earth. Ambassador would address the council one final time. She would come not as a petitioner, not as a member of the conquered, but as a herald. She would bring humanity's answer to the containment doctrine. The message ended with a single line. Listen carefully, we will only say this once. The council agreed to hear her. They had no choice. The galaxy was watching. The younger species were whispering. If the conquered refused to even listen, they would look weak. And so, 30 days after humanity had walked out of the grand chamber, the doors opened once more. Stepped inside. She was alone, she wore black, and she was smiling. The elder species looked at that smile and felt something ancient stir in their hearts, something that had been asleep for 10,000 years. The memory of what it felt like to be prey. Ambassador walked into the grand chamber alone. The 12 thrones were occupied. The elder species sat in their places, watching her with 1,000 different eyes. Some were angry, some were afraid. A few were trying very hard to look bored. Noticed all of this, she cared about none of it. She had changed in the 30 days since her last appearance. Her diplomatic white was gone, replaced by solid black. Her tired eyes had become sharp and cold. She moved differently now, not like a diplomat asking for favors, like a general who already knew she had won. She stopped at the center of the chamber, in that single beam of light, and waited. High Arbiter spoke first. His voice was carefully controlled but could hear the strain beneath it. Ambassador, you requested to address the council. We have granted this request in the spirit of diplomatic consideration. I appreciate that, said. Her voice was calm, pleasant even. I will try not to waste your time. What do you have to say? Smiled, I have something to show you first. She raised her hand. Behind her, the great doors opened. A single drone flew into the chamber, carrying a holographic projector. It positioned itself above's head and activated. The chamber filled with light. Images appeared in the air. Ships, hundreds of them, thousands of them. Human ships of every size and type gathered in formations that stretched across entire star systems. But they were different from the ships the conquered knew. They were angular and brutal. They bristled with weapons. They looked like what they were, instruments of war. In the past 30 days, said, humanity has completed a full military mobilization. Every ship has been converted. Every factory has been retooled. Every man, woman, and child of fighting age has reported for duty. The images changed. Ground forces, armored soldiers in powered suits, tanks and artillery and aircraft, armies on a scale the conquered had never imagined. You wondered why we went silent, continued. The answer is simple. We had nothing to say. We were too busy preparing. El leaned forward on his throne. You built all of this in 30 days. Impossible. We didn't build it, replied. We revealed it. Everything you see has existed for decades, hidden in plain sight, waiting. She turned to look directly at the ambassador. You thought our merchant ships were just merchant ships. You were wrong. You thought our passenger liners were harmless. They are not. You thought our science vessels were peaceful. They never were. The images changed again. This time they showed Earth, the blue planet floating in space, surrounded by a shell of orbital stations and defensive platforms. Every human colony was designed as a fortress from the day it was founded. Every city can become a bunker. Every civilian can become a soldier. His voice was soft, but it cut through the chamber like a blade. You wanted to contain us. You wanted to freeze our development, but you cannot contain what was never truly restrained. His mandibles clicked rapidly. This is a bluff. You cannot possibly have hidden military infrastructure of this scale from our intelligence services. Can't we? Tilted her head. You studied our wars for 60 years. You saw the destruction we inflicted on ourselves and assumed that was the limit of our capability. She paused. You were seeing our practice rounds. The hologram shifted one final time. It showed a single weapon, a missile, but the technical specifications beside it made several of the elder species go very still. We call this a planet cracker, said calmly. It is designed to destroy worlds. We have had the technology for over 200 years. We built it to protect ourselves from asteroids. Her smile grew colder. We have other uses for it now. The chamber was silent. The elder species stared at the holographic weapon floating in the air. Some of them had technologies that could destroy planets, but none of them had developed such things so young. None of them had built them so casually. What do you want? Asked. His voice was barely a whisper. Waved her hand and the hologram disappeared. I want to give you a choice, the same kind of choice you gave us. What choice? You can rescind the containment doctrine. You can return full control of our colonies. You can accept humanity as full and equal members of the conquered. His voice hardened. Or you can discover what happens when humanity stops holding back. El surged to his feet. You would threaten the entire conquered. You would start a galactic war. Looked at him with something that might have been pity. No, we would finish one. The silence that followed was absolute. The elder species looked at each other. They looked at their own trembling hands. For 10,000 years they had ruled the galaxy. They had crushed threats. They had contained dangers. They had controlled everything. Now they faced something they could not control. The collective speaks, the pale telepaths announced as one. Their voice echoed in every mind. We vote to rescind the containment doctrine. His head snapped toward them. What? The humans are correct, the collective continued. We have made a mistake. We looked at a dangerous species and tried to cage it. This was foolish. You do not cage a dangerous species. You make peace with it while you still can. One by one, the other species voted. Some did so reluctantly. Some did so quickly, eager to end this nightmare. But in the end, the vote was unanimous. The containment doctrine was rescinded. Humanity was granted full membership in the conquered. All restrictions were lifted. Listened to the votes with no expression on her face. When it was done, she nodded once. Humanity accepts these terms. We will return to peaceful relations. We will respect the laws of the conquered. She paused. But understand this, we will never forget what happened here. We will never again trust blindly. And if anyone ever tries to cage humanity again. She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. As she turned to leave, the collective reached out one last time. Their telepathic voice was quiet now, almost gentle. What are you? They asked. Truly, what are you? Stopped. For a long moment she was silent. Then she answered, and her mental voice carried all the weight of human history. We are what happens when prey refuses to die. We are the species that hunted its fears into extinction. We are the children of a harsh world who learned that survival is not given. It is taken. She walked toward the door. We tried to be your friends. You chose to be our enemies. That was your choice. She looked back one final time. Now you will learn to live with what you created. The doors closed behind her. The galaxy watched the human ambassador leave. The elder species sat on their thrones, shaken and silent. They had ruled for 10,000 years. They had faced countless challenges. But they had never faced anything like humanity. They had looked at the young species from Earth and seen chaos and violence and weakness. They had not understood what they were truly seeing. They had been watching wolves pretending to be sheep, and now the wolves had shown their teeth. The galaxy would never make that mistake again. In the years that followed, humanity took its place among the stars, not as a young species to be guided, not as a threat to be contained, but as equals, as partners, as something the elder species had never expected. As a reminder that in this vast, ancient galaxy, even the youngest voice can shake the oldest thrones. And somewhere in the depths of space, the other young species watched and learned. If humanity could stand against the conquered and survive, perhaps they could too. The age of the elder species was ending. The age of humanity had begun.